Bitty teeny tiny circle down there, okay? Now, on this side is your maternal, your mother's families, okay? On this side is your father's family. So I want you to fill out as much as you can, okay? Now, if you know absolutely nothing, don't put anything, you know, because sometimes people get adopted, people were raised in boarding schools and don't know who their grandparents really were. The name got changed. One of the things that you will work with when you're doing, especially Lakota genealogy, is a name change, okay? We have a sacred name and a surname. How our surnames came to be and what happened to all of the original names, like Day, and Day was married to Burning Breast, okay? President Theodore Roosevelt came to South Dakota when he was president, and I think that has to be around 1900 sometime. He didn't like the way that we were named because we could all be living in the same household, and my name would be Stella, yours would be Mary, hers would be, but nobody had a surname. And so he wanted everybody to have a surname. So therefore what they did, the head of the household, or the male, was then given, they used his last name. And then everybody in the family then had to sew chargers in the morning, and beautiful day woman, and hunts for horses, and all of these people then had to have a Christian name, and they used the last name of the father. And if that happened to be Ironclad or Bad Wound, then therefore everybody was now under that name. Does that make sense? Or did I confuse anybody? And if I'm talking too fast, please tell me, because I tend to rattle on sometimes. So that's how we all got to have the same last name. Otherwise, you could have been Beautiful Day Woman still, you know. But fill out as much as you can on the fan chart, and I will give you a few more minutes, and then we'll have we'll talk about what you've done and what you've found. If you have any questions, please keep them in reserve about 5 minutes to the hour, then we'll stop and do a question and answer. One of the things here at the library, or here if you have a library card, you can get onto Heritage Quest at home on your computer, and you can get into the Indian censuses. You can also get into the U.S. censuses, which are done every 10 years. So 1900, 1910, 1920. You can get into those. Right now, those only go to 1940. And I want to tell you, I'm 75 years old, and I'm not on there. So you better know who in the world was on there in 1940, because otherwise you're not going to be looking for anybody. I mean, you won't find them. And I have great-grandchildren, so that's 4 generations from 1940, which presents a little problem. The people who are on, not on Heritage Quest or Ancestry, but if you Google in people, sometimes if they have a speeding ticket or went to jail or made a speech, wrote a book, did something, then there may be something in Google about them. Also, one of the other things that we do here at the library is for the past couple of years, we've started saving obituaries. And obituaries can give you a lot of information. How many children they may have had, who the parents were. And so I need somebody to pass out these. Wait, no, where are they? Well, what do they do with them? Hold on. Okay. All right. In your packet, you each got 2 family group sheets. Did everybody get 2 family group sheets? Okay, they should be blank. 2 blank family group sheets. Okay. On the first, it says husband. Now, we're girls, we'll start with you. So we'll put you under the first child, okay? Or if you have older brothers and other siblings, down here where it says 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, those are the order of the children, okay? So if in your immediate family, or if you happen to be the only child, put your name there, okay? And put your siblings there, okay? In one of those blanks. Can you do that for me? And then
just do my favorite.
And then everybody else can put, like Bev, you can put you and your brothers here, okay? What we're going to do is we're going to find out the holes that you have, and we need to fill them in, okay? Because once you do this, then you're going to see what information you do have and what information you're missing. Yes?
What if you have like half sisters and brothers that come from different relationships?
You're going to put your mother, your real mother, and your real father. If you're the only one out of that relationship, so they had you and then they split up, you're going to be the only one there. Okay? And if you need more blanks of this, well, we might need more. Yeah. Here's a copy. I've just a little background. When I was a little girl, my grandmother had crippling arthritis, so I used to, this is my maternal grandma, she was a Valandri and she married a Red Wing. And she had crippling arthritis, so she didn't write, and as soon as I could stand on a chair and iron, I went to Grandma's house and stayed at her house, and then she would always tell me stories, and she had things in her trunks, and so we'd go through these old trunks, and she would tell me about her grandma who was bought and sold by an army officer. And then after he left for the Civil War, then she told me about the grandma's next husband, who was a school teacher at Old Fort Laramie. So all of these things I learned from my grandma. And you may have heard stories from your grandmas, and those you will treasure all your life if you were lucky enough to sit there and listen to grandma talk. And at that point in time, we didn't have TVs and radios, and so people visited. Now it's much more, technology has taken over, and people know that they're related to somebody, but they really don't know how or why or who. Or so you have to, modern day genealogists then have to do a lot more research probably on the computers and into some of the links. But when you get into the Indian censuses, everybody does an Indian census, but we never ever see them. So the only ones that are on heritage and ancestry go to like 1940, 41, 42. And that's all as far, I mean, that's as far as they will go. So, okay, is everybody done writing, or are people still pondering or trying to figure out who their grandma was? Do you need some packets back there? Yeah. Yeah. Here you go. Let's see. I'm trying to think of what I had all these girls pass out. Oh, it was this one and this one. Hi. Did you sign in? No. Okay, I think there's a sign-in sheet right here, right behind you, on this yellow tablet thing. Okay, let's go back to the fan charts now. A lot of people come and they wonder how come there's so many French names here. Well, most of us are going to have a French person back there somewhere, because the French were here forever. from the 1600s, I think, or maybe even the 1500s. And so this was French territory, and then Lewis and Clark came in 1800, 1805, something like that. And they walked from the Mississippi River to the Pacific Ocean, and then decided to tell the President, oh shoot, I can't think of his name, Jefferson, I think, that we should buy, they should buy the Louisiana Purchase, it was called. So therefore, after America bought it, and then all the people that were there became American citizens. So most of us will have a French person in our genealogy somewhere. I happen to have Valandres. And I put two spellings up here. I put Valandri and Valandra, and neither one of them is right. The correct spelling is Villandrie, and that is on Joseph Villandry's, he was born in 1808. That is the spelling on his tombstone. And then, but when we had interpreters, we had people that had very little education, so the spellings changed. One of the really severe ones that, or I call it severe, but there's another word for it and a better word, but I can't think of what it is. So I kept looking in the 1896 censuses at this lady called, can you write this on the board for me, please? You have such wonderful spelling. G-R-I-N, writing, G-R-I-N, G-R-A-S. Okay, she shows up as Mrs. Now, on all of these censuses, these early censuses, because her husband is French or non-Indian or white or black, whatever, they're not going to name him. It's just her. It's always Mrs. Clark, Mrs. Smith, Mrs. Stover, Mrs. Robinson, all of these Mrs. and their kids. So we have this one here. Well, she's only on like 2 censuses, and then she disappears. Come back, please. And write down Shangru. Well, this is what happens when the translators get to it. Because they don't speak French. So, however, Greengrass, that's how I pronounce it, is pronounced in French, somehow or other it ends up Shangru. And so that's what happened to this lady and her kids, okay? They became Shangrus. So that some of the names were really, really turned around and changed, and the spellings were completely different, and it's it just depended on who was the interpreter and who was who wrote. Okay, let's start with, could you stand up and tell me your name, please? I like your skirt. No. What is it? Now I'm hard of hearing. You're going to have to speak up a little bit. It means what? Okay. Then show me or tell me about your why don't you bring it here? Okay. So you need to see how many here you've got already. And then here, all you have to do is look at mine and you can get that thing filled out, okay? So most of your blanks will be full except for the outer circle. All right, thank you. You want to bring yours up? Oh my, you're a bean writer. This is just fantastic. Oh, nice. You did a wonderful job, and you know so much about your family. This is just wonderful. Okay, so now then what you need to work on is these here.
Yeah.
But that's, you know, you did a wonderful, wonderful job. Okay, somebody else? Why don't you, with the purse? You have a beautiful purse. Bring your...
I don't even know my mom's that side of the family.
Okay, all right. Okay. All right. Oh, wait. Okay.
That's her married.
Right. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, that's great. Okay. Does anybody have any questions about the fan charts? All right. And what is your name, ma'am?
Aurora.
Aurora. Aurora, I would like you to stand up and please tell everybody what's on your chart.
Read all of it.
All of it. She did a wonderful, wonderful job. She knows tons about her family already.
Okay. My father is James Underbaggage, and his father, or my grandpa, was Philip Underbaggage, and his mother's name was Jessie Redfeather. And then Philip, his father's name was Charles Underbaggage, and his mother's name was Nancy Takes Enemy. And Jessie Redfeather, her father's name was Edward Redfeather, and her mother name was Alice Whitehat. And then my mother, her name's Cindy White Thunder, and her dad's name is Kenneth White Thunder, and her mom's name is Alice Pumpkinseed. And then my grandpa's dad's name was Albert White Thunder, and his mom's name was Susie Lombull. And then my grandma, her dad's name was Robert Pumpkinseed, and her mother's name was Mabel Eaglebear, and Mabel Eaglebear's father's name was Chief Eaglebear.
Thank you so much. Okay, so when you look at what she's done, then the only blanks that she has are really mostly in the outer circle. So she has gone quite a ways with knowing who her ancestors are, and who she's related to, and what work she would need to do. Okay, let's get back to the family group sheet now. Okay, so now you have this family group sheet, and did anybody fill theirs out? Yay or nay? Nay. If you get to, you've got this handout. Corrine Sky kills pretty enemy. Did everybody get one of those? You didn't. Okay. Well, I gotta find you one here. Well, here, you can have mine, I guess. Oh, here's some.
I don't think the girls got them either.
Didn't they?
Did you get that, girls?
I thought they oh, okay. Sorry about that. No wonder, because I got the whole folder here. Here. All right. All right, let's get back to Corey. Corey, I'm sorry about that. I thought we passed these out. That's just me and my senior moments here. Okay. In genealogy, all genealogy, you have certain things that provide tons of information. One of them is a birth certificate. That's your main source, your primary source is a birth certificate. If you can get a birth certificate, that's great. A death certificate, an obituary. Around here we have prayer cards, and the prayer cards tell tons of information. Thank you. Let's see, what else? Can anybody else think of something that gives you tons of information? Around we have probates. Everybody has probates, but we have probates, and it tells, some of them are 40 pages long, and it tells who was related to who, and because we have land. Now, I'm not really understanding land issues, like tribal land, deeded land, all that stuff. I really don't pay too much attention to that. But because of that land, it gets to who in the world, it may be divided 500 different ways. And I'm looking for a book here. I thought I had. So if you can find a probate, that'll really, really, really help. One of the probates that I don't think I brought, I will tell you about, was my grandpa John Redwing had a sister named Alice, and they were from Santee. And Alice Redwing, her first husband was Moses Redell, and they got married at Our Most Merciful Savior in Santee, Nebraska, and proceeded to have 2 daughters, and then they got a divorce. Well, that just was not done way back, let's see, what year am I talking? In early 1900s. So her mom put her in a boat. This is how the story goes in our family. Put her in a boat and took her across to Greenwood. And anyway, so she's in Greenwood, and now she marries Reverend Charles Brewer. Here's another French name, and I'm going to pronounce it wrong because everybody pronounces it differently. I pronounce it Brewer. I have cousins that pronounce it Bruguière, but it's Brughier. And so she marries Reverend Charles Bruguière, and he gets transferred back to Martin, and he becomes a minister in Martin. Well, around the 1920s, and this is where Reverend Philip Allen, has anybody ever heard of him? No. Okay. He comes out of that family there. But in, I think it's 1929, Reverend Charles Bruguière had an appendicitis attack and died from peritonitis. Now, before the advent of antibiotics, most people that got peritonitis, which was an infection of the stomach basically, or the gut, usually died because there was no medication to help you. So she then marries Fred Bisnet. Now this is an old marriage, so there's no children. And when Fred Bisnet died in 1951, they did a probate, and the all he had in the world was $100. Now, maybe in 1951 that was a lot of money, but he was old, and it was probably his pension, and he was still married to Alice Redwing, so she's the widow. But they did a probate on Fred, and it's it's almost like 40 pages long, because Fred comes from, he's one of the original Bisnet children, and his dad had 3 wives. Now, and so there was 18 siblings. So his probate is very, very long. And so once you divide up that $100 between all these 5,000 people, you know, you're only going to get a quarter of a penny if you got that. Now, I'm not too sure how they settle all of this, but anyway, that just goes to tell you that, you know, you need these probates because it's going to give you tons and tons of information. Okay, so now we have the birth certificate, death certificate, and now we have Corinne Sky's obituary. Okay, so if we need more family group sheets, we will get you some, but I want you to take a family group sheet and write down all of the information that you can get from this, because you're going to get tons of information from this. Do you all have a blank family group sheet? Do you? What is your name? Next one. What is your name?
Jessie.
Do you have a blank family group sheet? Well, you better start filling it out, sweetheart. I want all the information that you're going to find from Corinne Sky, okay? Yes?
On the family sheet, we start with, she's gonna be a child? Is that,
You can start with her being a child, or you can start with her being a mother or wife.
okay.
So, or you can use 2 sheets, and she's a child on one and she's a wife on the other. And if you need some more, we just made more copies here somewhere.
You didn't use the information to fill out the chart. So husband.
Okay, so it sounds like her husband's name was Kill's Pretty Enemy. So at least we have his last name. Does anybody have families that aren't from here, that are from somewhere else? Taiwan, Who knows? No? Okay.
Stella,
Yes.
I was just wondering why her last name, is it S-K-Y-E or is it supposed to be S-K-Y?
And that's like this Valandra thing. She's coming from the Clarence Sky family, and those are red wings. Those are coming out of the second wife of is it Tutankhamuni? Tutankhamuni had 2 wives, and so I come out of the first wife, and she's coming out of the second wife. Okay. So we know her name is Corinne Sky Kills Pretty Enemy. And she passed away on October 10, 2011 at the Alta Bates Medical Center in Oakland, California. So we've got 1, 2 blanks filled in. And then we filled in 2 more. We filled in her father's name and her mother's name and where she was born. She was born at Fort Yates, North Dakota in 1950. You can put Standing Rock if you want. I mean, if you were probably from this family. And then the next paragraph tells, or the next 2 paragraphs tell all about her life and what she did. And then it sounds like she only had 1 daughter whose name was Karen Wakazu. Now, Nakai. Okay, so I just put down Nakai. I didn't put Wakazu because I don't know if Wakazu is her maiden name or she's been married twice. The services are being held at the Guerrero Mortuary in San Leandro, California on Saturday, 10/15/11 with services at the Porcupine Cemetery in Shields, North Dakota. So we more or less filled out all the information on her. And then we know her siblings now. We know her father's name. We know her mother's name. And we know her siblings. So if this was our immediate family, then we would start filling in all these blanks. When you're, when you're doing genealogy, you tend to have a lot of papers. But one of the main things that is important is trying to stay organized. Nape, do you want to look at this and then pass this around and everybody can look at it? This is just one of the notebooks that I have on my dad's family, the bad ones, and the iron clouds. The iron clouds are in a separate notebook. These are all bad ones. And I just, if you look at the tabs, I've got the children, the main child, maybe the first child, I have a red, and then all the siblings or their children are in yellow or something like that. But I try to keep them organized, and when I find something on them or new, then I put it in there or add it. And I also highlight the direct descendants, because by the time you get down to Kwan, who married Susie and they were in the service together, who in the world is the real descendant? Or do you understand what I'm trying to say? Maybe I didn't explain that well. But So I try to highlight the direct descendants. Organization is always a challenge, and if you only have a half an hour to do genealogy every week, it's still important to try to keep all these things organized. Okay. What is your name again, sweetheart?
Aurora.
Oh, okay. Do you want to pass these out, please? Sorry. Wait, now I'll keep one. And if I don't have enough, let me know. Okay, I'm going to pass out some samples of things that you'll run into when you're doing Native American genealogy. There's just a little bit of where'd she go? Tava, could you bring out one of the 1906 censuses, please? I think when we get these passed out, you can look at them, but we'll also take a break right now because I need a drink of water. So we'll take a quick break. And if anybody has any questions, oh, let's see. Just, do you have any questions, sir? You, yeah, you. You always hear people say what now?
7th generation.
Well, they're going back 7 generations. Technically, you can say there's 4 generations per century, every 100 years. There's basically there's 4 generations, but I have great grandkids, and I was born in 1942, and so then you've got my parents who were born in the 20s. So that's 5 generations. Then you've got my grandparents and my great-grandparents, and that's 7. And then basically it's just, 1.5 centuries they're talking about.
Just a 4th generation?
That one there is. There's different, that's just to tell you if you have any holes in your genealogy, basically, and you need to look for these people. So that's just for your basic information. What you know and what you don't know. Did you get yours all filled out?
Oh, so it.
Did you? Well, good. Do you want to stand up and tell us all about it?
Well, I cheated because I had this.
Oh, you cheated.
So you can't talk.
Well, good for you. I'm glad you had that, because that is very important to have. And if you have one, keep it, because the enrollment office has something called the family journal or something, family ledger. And they can go back pretty far. And so some of the names that they put down on that are different than the names that we know them by. But it's great. You should make sure you have a couple copies. Here's the other thing. If you have, say you have some of these things that I have, all these things, you probably should make sure that there's 3 copies and that other people have it in case your house blows away or something. Are there any more questions? Do you have to leave pretty soon? Okay. Is there anything I can help you with before you go?
I'll just look at your, during break, I'll look at your notebooks probably.
Okay. All right. One of the things that, so if there's no questions, I'll just keep going. One of the things that we tried to do here was become a affiliate with the Salt Lake City Museum. I mean, Salt Lake City, what is it called? Library. And so that we could order their films here and show them, and have them and order information from them, but somehow or other that didn't work out. So one of the films that I used to go to the Mormon library in Rapid City because they have a big selection of Pine Ridge films and Standing Rock films. But one of the films that I really, really liked was The Revision of Names. And let me see if there's a sample. I hope I gave you a sample of The Revision of Names. No, I didn't. All right. Can somebody pass these out for me then? Okay, girls, just hurry up and kind of skim through that. You can look at that later, but I'd like everybody to take a peek at it, just so that that's mainly organization skills and how to keep your things organized. The books on the table are most of them, some of them are my books, but most of them are books that we have here at the library that pertain to reservation families. So we have quite a few. There's Donovan Sprague books, there's the Crazy Horse Surrender Ledger and the Sitting Bull Census. There should be Virginia Driving Hawks Navy's Completing the Circle, maybe Red Cloud's Folk, My People to Sue, little things like that. All of these, if you have come from a certain band or family, we may have some information that's helpful to you once you get back into your great-great-grandparents. Or in your cases, it would be probably great, 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 great. But, okay, on this handout here that I just handed you, and it says War Bonnet, okay, this is the 1906 revision of names, okay. Every tribe, this was done everywhere. In Santee, they did it in 1902. And the first column, you have to pay attention to me because you're not going to understand how this goes. This first column here says permanent name, the name you are always going to use. This is like the name you're going to use on your birth certificate, your driver's license, your social security card, and anything else that may come up. What name are you going to use forever and a day? And it's this one. So, okay. Let's go down to Return Warrior, okay? And that's kind of towards the bottom of the page. All right. So he says that his first name is Return. He's the husband. And his last name is going to be Warrior. All right. The next column, it says kills and come back. All right. The heading on that column at the top is what name did you come in under the allotment? When you came in and got an allotment, what was your name? And that was kills and comes back. Okay? And then it gives his age, and it gives his Lakota name, which half of it is gone. Okay, and then this last section back here is who is he related to? Okay? And so it says he is a brother of Kate, Pretty Bird Woman, Shave Bear, and Mrs. Lays Bear. And his wife Fanny is the daughter of Long Woman, I think, and the sister of Burrows. Okay. So when you get into a census, like on this page here, okay, go down to Knife Chief, which is number 294, and it says Knife Chief, okay? Now the writing on this census is pretty bad, but it's readable. But anyway, it says he's the father. He's 53 years old. He has a wife who's 53. Her name is Stand By Them. He has a son who's 19. His name is Pole. He has another son, 9, drives away. And then he has a brother who's 40 years old, and his name is Savage. Okay? So this is the 1890 census for Pine Ridge. So who is Pole, who is drives away, who is Savage, and who is Stand By Them? Knife Chief stays the same, but Stand By Them probably becomes Helps. His wife Helps. Okay? And then the family below that is Iron Cloud, and his wife is Eagle Feather. And then he has a daughter, 19, runs to her mountain. Okay, and that was another wife. But because the government didn't recognize more than one wife, especially some of the wives, Knife Chief's wife, I think, is on another page. The other wife. And, no. She's, no, she's above. She's family number 59. And her son is Looks for Horses, 19. And then it says Yellow Prairie Fire, 49 years old. And then she has he has a brother, Looks for Horses, has a brother named Tail. He has a sister named Pretty Woman. He has another sister named Her White Horses. And then there's a son, and I can't read that. I'll have to, Wapika. But Fortunate, okay, who's 8 months old. So when you're looking for, you might have to be looking for some of these people, and they may show up in a couple more censuses, because believe me, they took censuses and censuses every year, and sometimes every 6 months. So there's tons and tons of censuses on us, and when around 1900, when President Theodore Roosevelt comes around and says that we all have to have a surname, everybody here has to have a Christian name, and you have to get rid of your other wives. You can only have one wife. So usually the other wife just is in a different household a lot of times, or in a different room if you had a fixed dwelling. So let's take a break. I need to take a little break. And you can all tell me how confused you are.
I found his wife.
Did you?
I'm just curious on the organization.
Oh, where did that book go? Can she look at this book real quick?
That's all right, I can.
No. That's. Okay.
So you have like one for your
Okay.
father's side.
Well, I'm going to tell you, sometimes you start out with one little piece of paper like this, and you end up like this. So you've got to stay organized. Here, let me put it right here, and I'll kind of explain how I did this to you, for you. Okay, so Emily and Edward are married, and they're the parents, and this is my grandma's sister. So this is Eileen's grandma. Okay? And then, and of course I've got a big sticker here that says we do. But these are all of their kids, and I listed them oldest to youngest. Emily going down to Jeff, and then Does anybody have any questions? No? Okay. Because I have a lot of family photos and I've been collecting them for all my life, seems like, I gathered them, not all of them, but some of the main ones, and I put them, I took them to the Up Store and I had copies made. I had 20 copies made because I wanted each member of the family, the main first grandchildren, or I don't remember how my thinking went, but I think that's how it went. So I made these packets up for them, and this was their Christmas present. So that nobody can ever say, you never give us anything, you never share. She keeps, I really, really want to share my information with people, but most people just don't want to listen, you know? They're really not, they think they're interested in family, but they're not, you know. They are interested in a little bit here and there, and that's it. So I did all these photos because I just thought it was important that they know at least who the great-grandparents were, and I did have pictures. So I put them in binders and I gave them out. This one here happens to be one of is going. He didn't get it for Christmas yet, but he's going to get it. This is going to go to my brother's oldest son, who was adopted by his stepfather. So his last name is Dahlgren. And he really, really never knew too much about our family, and wasn't really connected with us until his dad got sick. And then he wanted to learn more about us. So so now he's all enthusiastic and wants to know about his family. So anyway, I made up all those packets for everybody, and some of them are still sitting at my house waiting for people to come after them. But at least the main photos, if they want the genealogy information, that's different. But most people are just interested in pictures. I want to talk about, can you help me with the 1900 census, please? Okay, I want to talk about the 1900 census. Let's just hand up a page, hold up a page or something.
Yeah, I didn't know, I brought them all out in case you wanted to use it.
Yeah, just one that's readable. Or is there one that has two? There is one that has two. So I can explain. I think I put them in groups, remember? So this is,
This one on the bottom was who was it?
okay, well, wait,
I think they're different.
okay. All right. Okay, now we need to put this one somewhere and find George Fire Thunder on that one, in that group there. These are, I did separate them all out because he had 1 and 2. George Firestone. You can probably read it down here better. Okay. One for the camera, and I'll talk about this one. Okay, we're going to talk about the 1900 U.S. Census. If everybody would like to look my way for just 1 minute, that would help. Because I am going to give you a big test, so you're going to have to pass this test. Okay. On the U.S. Census for 1900, they had a special inquiry for Indians. Okay? And that's why this 1900 census is so important when you're going to be looking for your ancestors. Okay? So the main part up here is, wait now. This guy's name is George Fire Thunder, okay? And he's the head of his family. He has a wife named Mary, a daughter named Bessie, a son whose name is George, and another son whose name is Jasper. Then he has a stepson, and his name is William Janice. He has brothers-in-law, 3 of them. He has 3 brothers-in-law. Frank Bisnet, Joseph Bisnet, and who did I say Alice Redwing married? Fred Bisnet. So in 1900, Fred Bisnet is living with George Fire Thunder. Okay? So then it tells about George, and he was born in November of 1862. He's been married for 10 years. In column 10, he's been married for 10 years. His wife says that she has had 6 kids, but only 4 are living. Okay? Now this is very important to look at the wife, and because sometimes they had 10 kids, but none are living. They could have 4 kids and none are living. Or if they're lucky, they've got a couple of kids. This lady down here, Mary Red Cloud, the wife of Chief Red Cloud, she had 8 kids and only 3 are living. And they've been married for 51 years. Now that is, I mean, that's important information because it's just nice to know these things. And then they have a grandson living with them, and his name is Luke Barrelone, and he's 16. Okay. These next columns, it says, George, where in the world were you born? And George says, I was born in Nebraska. And my dad was born in Wyoming, and my mom was born in South Dakota. Okay. And then some of them, like some of the Bisnets, they'll say that their dad was born in Missouri. Oh, these ones do. Frank says, my dad was born in Missouri. You get into Mexicans, and they're saying, my dad was born in Mexico. Maybe Garcias, Hernandez, or Gallegos. They're born in Mexico. So this is important for where is your father born. Some of the French people will say Lower Canada. If they're, they hardly ever say like Quebec or Canada per se. They'll say Lower Canada or Upper Canada, I think it is. And most of the times you get a lot of unknown. I don't know where they were born, have no idea. Okay. And then these last ones here pertain to occupations, okay? And most of them just say that they're a ration Indian. We ran into one of them here, though, that he said he was an actor. And I can't remember what his name is. So he's an actor. Okay, on the bottom of that, when you get into the special inquiries, it says other name, if any, okay? Well, George Fire Thunder just goes by George Fire Thunder. And then on the nativity part, what tribe are you? He says, I'm Sioux. The tribe of your father is Sioux. The tribe of your mother is Sioux. But Mary says she's Sioux. She says her father is white, but her mother is Sioux, and she's a half-breed. And so her children are a quarter, and some are a half. And now I'm not really too sure. No, they're all quarter, I guess. But William Janice is a half-breed. Frank Bisnet is half. Fred Bisnet is half. And then the rest of these people are all full-bloods. And then, so when you get to Red Cloud, he says his other name is Makbia Luta. And then Mary, she doesn't say, she just says her name is Mary. So, and then it tells you where did they live. Did they live in a teepee? Did they live in a fixed house or fixed dwelling? And these people are all living in fixed dwellings, okay? But the 1900 census is probably one of my go-to censuses, first of all, when I'm looking for information. And then my other census that I love is this 1906 revision of names. Because a lot of times people are looking for the wrong name. And I can't think of who it was. I was looking, yes, I had to do somebody's genealogy a couple months ago, and it was, oh shoot, it's a really short name, King. Okay, King. But when you get back to the grandparents, they go by Yellow Shirt. And it's not King on the census, it's Yellow Shirt. So, you may not know that it was Yellow Shirt, but Grandma and Grandpa did, but you know, they didn't think to tell anybody. And so, just little things like that are important. The reading, when you're reading about your family, if you have a family that was in the Wild West shows, and a lot of people did. They may not know it, but they did. Every year they gathered people up. When the I think it was the 1904 Louisiana Purchase Exposition, they had a lot of Indians that went to St. Louis. But before that, they had a year-long Indian Congress in Omaha, Nebraska. And when you went to that one, then you had to be prepared to support yourself the whole time. So you had to, you more or less had to be self-sufficient, because they weren't going to always feed you, I guess. I'm not too sure how that worked, but let's see. Now, what did I forget to talk about? Okay, it's question and answer time, because I more or less talked about everything.
Sorry for being late, but
That's okay.
I know you started talking about the U.S. Census 1900, and I just heard you say there was one thing different about it, and I was like really listening, and I know you went through the different sections, but I was waiting for that one thing different.
That's the Indian inquiries.
Okay.
Because if you're fortunate enough, on some of them, it gives you their Lakota name, okay? And that's really important. On some of them, whoever did the census taker, and his name is always up here. Sometimes it gives the township that they were in, T38 to R47 or something. but this one doesn't. It just says Shannon County. And who in the world was W.C. Lamont or something, it looks like, was the census taker. And evidently he knew how to, spell Makbialuta. Some of them I'm kind of worried about them when they take censuses, but some of them did a really good job. Okay, any other questions?
I have a question.
We were just kind of discussing why some names are they cut off? Like, I asked about that last name Sky, S-K-Y-E or S-K-Y. I mean, is that a Washichu interpretation of the last name? S-K-Y-E?
They probably spelled it that way. It's like Muso. When you run into Muso, some of them put an X on and some don't, but they're all from the same Musos. You know, there was only one Muso, and that was Magliore Muso, and he was grandfathered into the tribe in the 1858s. The misspelling or the different spellings of the name. Now Clarence Sky, I always thought Clarence Sky always just spelled his name S-K-Y. You know, but this is his sister, so maybe she wanted to be a little different. And you know, it's like I'm going to spell my name Judy, J-U-D-I. You know, so people change the spelling. I mean, some people take out vowels or add vowels. And that's why it's very hard to find somebody with the name Robinson and Robertson, because they've got double T's, S-O-N, S-E-N, you know, they're adding things, taking things out, and it just, it can be a big headache, because you have to go through all of those different spellings to figure out, you know, I mean, I was teaching a class in Rapid City, and the lady said, I'm looking for one of my uncles, and he got mad at the whole family and left, and then he proceeded to take out all the vowels in his name, and then, so if you've got a name like Saunders, you want to spell that up here? Or Greengrass, or whatever.
Right.
Okay, take out the vowels. Okay, so now you've got to name something that looks like that, you know, if you took out the vowels. But I mean, people do strange things, you know, because they want to be different. They don't want to be affiliated with those people. I'm not related to them, you know. They can be your relative, but they're not my relative. And so you just run into all kinds of little weird things. And you just have to, in genealogy, you have to take the good with the bad. Whether they got executed, they spent their life in prison, whether they died in a sanitarium for crazy people, you know. I mean, you have to take the good. We don't all come from perfect families. It would be nice if we did, but we don't. And whether they were, when you run into people that came here, we had a lot of people evading the law on the other side of the Mississippi River, coming over here, marrying people, settling down, you know, having families. We had
or siblings that chose to spell their names differently on forms, and then they stuck. So when you think about the original LeBeau brothers coming down from Cheyenne River, and then the LeBeaus down here are descended from the same folks, but changed it into one word and added an X. What we see with
with the police.
Shangers, the Shangers with and without X.
Right. So even around here, you have all kinds of different spellings, and don't think that you're not related to these people. I'll tell you, as an example, I have a humongous notebook, kind of like that orange one that's going around wherever it went. That one, yeah. And it started with just a picture on the front page. And that was Magliore Musso's, M.A. Musso married a Lakota woman. M.A. Musso came from Lower Canada. His brother was the Prime Minister of Quebec. And he had an older brother, I think, that was in the church. Well, way back when, if you had all these boys in the white world, one went into the church, one became a diplomat, one went west, I guess. And so Magliore Musso came out west and marries a Lakota woman, and then proceeds to have about 5 or 6 kids. Well, now these are nice Catholic families. So they all marry, and her sister married Little Bat Garnier, and then that was her only sister. And then her brothers all proceeded to marry. One married in Rosebud, so you've got Mussos in Rosebud. You have Mussos in Martin, and you have Mussos all over the reservation here. She then was married off to a man named Posey Ryan. And Posey Ryan and Sophia had about 5 kids. When the reservation was being established, he decided that he loved a white woman, and so he put Sophia and whatever, her belongings, I guess, and sent her back over here. She is on the 88 census all by herself, just listed Sophia Ryan. And he kept the kids. Well, she then marries John Monroe, and then proceeds to have 5 or 6 kids. So Posey Ryan marries this white woman, and in 1900 he walks into at breakfast time. Everybody's eating breakfast in this restaurant, and he walks in and he proceeds to shoot his wife and her daughter. And the sheriff is having breakfast at the next table, and he says, I know I'm going to hang for this, but it was worth it, because she took every dime I ever had, or something like that. And he went to prison for about 10 years. But 3 of Sophia's children from John Posey Ryan came back over here and got allotments. One became a state's attorney. What was his, James Ryan was his name, I think. And he lived in Martin, and he got the flu when he was about 27 years old and died. And never married. And then her 2 daughters that got land, they went to California, and I don't know whatever happened to them. I haven't followed up on that part of it yet. But we had a lady that was writing a book on Sophia Ryan and other people in this photo. So it just it's just amazing how one person can end up in a great big notebook like that with tons, and I keep adding to it. It just is bulging, and I need to spend about a month straightening out Sophia Monroe now. And her daughter Julie married Dan Badwound, and they were the parents of my uncle Elgin Badwound. So it's amazing to me And I love looking at all these stories and reading all these histories and stuff. But I know a lot of people aren't interested like I am. So anyway, is there anything else I need to talk about? Any questions? I don't know if I answered your question about the sky and the sky, but it did get translated sky. That's how they translated it.
I guess I was just thinking about, the Lakota name in general, sky,
Yeah.
or if they came from a sky Washichu family, I guess.
No. Because Clarence Sky's mother, let me see. We have. What I did was I had 10 years of Santee Red Wing genealogy books, censuses, histories, allotment numbers. They all got donated to OLC. So they're all down in the archives now. One of the other things that we have here that is very interesting, and I don't have a copy of it so that you could see what it looked like, is the SDERA disc. It's on a disc, a CD. It's the Emergency Assistance Program or something like that. South Dakota, and it was during the Depression. So when they come around, a worker comes to your house and then proceeds to do a history. So gets the man, the wife, the children, who all's living in this house, and then it's kind of biased, but it gives some good information like the obituary. It gives their names and ages and her maiden name usually, how much Indian they are, whether they're full-bloods, half-breeds, or the husband is white or something. Then it also tells about sleeping conditions, whether they live in a fixed house, they're all living in tents, and sometimes there's 2 or 3 tents, and the old people are sleeping in one tent. They're using one tent for like a living room, dining room, and then the other tent could be a sleeping tent. Whether they have a well, whether there's a outhouse, how far they have to go to get water, if they have a car, if they have horses, do they work. So there's tons of information on 1 or 2 sheets of paper, and if you know what their names were when your grandparents in the 30s, chances are they're on this CD, and it's really, really interesting. The other thing that we have that I gave to OLC Archives from Santee are the marriage register, the baptismal records, death records, I think. Yeah, cemetery records. So those were all on CD. And so I donated all of those to OLC. And if you have some relatives who are from Santee, you might find them there. Roulards, anybody related to the Roulards? No? Okay, the Roulards come from Santee, the Frasers, the Kiddos, the Tuttles, the Red Wings, the Red Owls, some of the Red Owls. There are Pine Ridge Red Owls and there are Santee Red Owls. What are some of the other names that come from there that are over here? I'm trying to think. Zephyr. I said Zephyr, right? Who?
Westons?
The Westons all come from Flandreau and Sisseton.
Rosses?
And the Rosses, yes. So there's quite a few people from eastern South Dakota and Nebraska and Minnesota that are married into people over here. Let's see. I think that's about it.
Stella, I have one, I was really thinking about something as we were sitting here. Are you familiar with the state of South Dakota, how they translate kinship to our children in foster care? They say like, okay, first cousin, second removed, there's just a long thing that they try to, I guess, put kind of like a genealogy, but it's more or less taking away the genealogy of the blood.
Well, yeah, they would do that, but I mean, if we wanted to change that, we would have to all get together and draw something up and take it to them and say, you need to do it this way.
I think that needs to be done.
Yeah.
So that's how they were placing a lot of the children in saying, oh, they're not really kinship close enough to place. It's kind of getting like back to family preservation, but I think that chart needs to be redone.
Right.
So somebody needs to do it.
Well, and the family group sheet here definitely always needs it. I always wanted to do it myself, but there are things, I just write all over it. I put the Lakota name there. I put 4/4 if they're 4/4, if they're half, if they're 5/8, 3/8, whatever. I will put that down on that sheet. I wanted to go through one more thing with you, and I think it's here. As soon as I find it.
Girls, what have you noticed about this process? How would you describe it? Even just in one word. Don't be afraid to be honest.
Yes.
Confusing.
She has the word. Say it. She said complicated.
Yes.
Complicated? Oh my God, I'm trying to simplify it.
So when we think about math and how many formulas we need to know the further along we get in algebra and into trigonometry or into chemistry, those things. But a good way to think about this work is being a detective. And detectives will have cold cases for years and years, but when you add what you can find out as you go along, you learn more about who you are and where you come from. And for any of you that are going to go away to school, or you really want to be able to sit down when you see yourself down the road being an Unchi and having your grandbabies around you, you want to be able to tell them who they are and where they come from. So it's definitely a big puzzle. And if you like puzzles, and knowing that maybe you just get a little bit done when you can here and there, it'll really be something that you carry with you for the rest of your life, and it's a really cool thing. So maybe frustrating, maybe complicated, but it belongs to you.
Okay, on this packet here, if you open it up, there's a picture of a lady in here. Do you want one opened up over there and put on the table? Would that help? Okay. Which packet is this? Oh yeah, this one. Wait now. Now I gotta find me one. Wait now. he's to put one on the page over there. Okay, this was film number 1002767, and I wrote it at the top, and I did this 42504. Okay, I found this coming across when I was going through this film looking for allotment numbers and where the land was located, and that's what this is. This lady's name is Comes Back Night. Okay. At the top, her land is located in Wounded Knee, WK at the top, way on the left at the top. Her allotment number is 105, okay? And then it tells her name, Comes Back Night. It tells, she has grazing land, she has 320 acres. And she's going to lease it to, this line in the center is kind of like leaseor and leasee, and I'm not too sure how that works. But anyways, she has land that she's going to lease to, I think, Mel Tanner or somebody, or Lee Talbot or somebody of White Clay. But on this whole section here, it says who are her heirs. And this is what really got me, because I had never heard of this lady before. Her heirs are Red Nicholas from Porcupine, Runsford Hill, Edward Ironcloud, Robert Ironcloud, Emily Around Him, James Ironcloud, George Ironcloud, Alice Ironcloud, Holy Bear, and James Foolcrow. And it gives when they were born, it tells their sex, and then the account number, the H, whatever. Okay. So this was all for Comes Back Night. And then it's also told me somewhere that her brother was Iron Crow. Okay. Now if you turn the next page over, this is Chicken or Prairie Chicken, and this is her sister. And her heirs are the same people as the heirs for Comes Back Night. Now who are they? So this is one of the big puzzles, is who are these people and how did we become the heirs?
They were orphaned, maybe, and the family took them in, and then they took these guys as...
Well, it would be up to the probate. The probate people are going to decide who in the world their heirs are, because I think their original heirs were Dog on the Hill and Eagle, and they all died because they each had half shares. But why all of a sudden, now who are they related to? So that means they're coming in from somewhere. Are they related to the Knife Chiefs? Are they related to the Ironclouds from Standing Rock? Are they... So I honestly don't, I've never figured this one out. I mean, one of these days I probably will, or if somebody knows, tell me, you know. But, any ideas? Okay. It is a puzzle. That's right. That's one of those unsolved cold case files. The other big family that, besides the Genesis, which is a French name, the other big family is the Rishaws, or Richards, or Richard. And they can spell it with a S, they can spell it with just the D on the end. but they're all from the same family, okay? And they came from 3 original brothers. These 3 brothers were born in Missouri, and their dad set up trading posts in Fort Laramie and Denver, and and then they worked for the fur company and did trading. And when you get back that far, these people, it was the wild and woolly West, I'm telling you, because it was the survival of the fittest. So we think that they may have been romantic characters, but really, when you came right down to it, they were, tough little guys, because they weren't all that tall, actually. Some of them were, but a lot of them were pretty short. But most of them married Lakota women and had more than one wife. When they discovered gold in the Rocky Mountains, and then decided that the Indians all had to get out of there because they needed that land, then all of those people had to move up this way. So on another page here, we've got, I think it's in here. Oh shoot. Wait, now one of your packets here is a okay, on this packet here that's for the revision of names, in there you should have a copy of the, I'm going to give him one for the camera. A copy of the Upper Platte Agency, 1867. This is a half-breed petition for land for half-breed families. And all of these men on the bottom here, Garreau, Ecafes, Kelly, Rouleau, Rishaw, Hogan, Salway, Bigler, Bray, Rubidoux, Boyer, Tyon, Rishaw, Boyd. You just keep going and going, and Ayat, Bisnet, Herman, Lamoureux. They were petitioning land for their people because there was up to 3,000 half-breeds at that point in time. And let's see, the said families and their half-breed children now number on the Platte and Missouri rivers more than 2,000 souls. That the construction of the railroad across the plains has so changed business and travel that all means of support along the North Platte are destroyed. And so they wanted land for their people, so they drew this up. And then, so when we got the reservation, or they were going to put us over here, they decided that all of these people had to move to the Strip. Now, the Strip is 10 miles north of the Nebraska-South Dakota line and 10 miles south of the Nebraska-South Dakota line. So all the way from Bennett County through Shannon County. And that's where most of the half-breeds ended up having land, was down by Batesland and down by Pine Ridge and all the way south of Martin. You've got all the Livermonts and Valandries and Garys, Bowmans, whoever. But that's where they put them all. So, okay. Thank you very much for coming. I hope I didn't bore you to death and put everybody to sleep. But And this is how you do it when you don't have a computer. The next time I give one of these, I think we'd like to talk about electronics and how to, if you're a geeky person, it will be easier. But this is for people like me who don't do any of that stuff.
You guys to fill out these surveys. So fill that real quick, then hand it back to me.
If you'd like to take a look at the table, the books on the table back there, so kind of give you an idea of some of the stuff that we have at the library. The library here has wonderful, wonderful collection of all the Lakota books that have ever been written. And if you're related to Crazy Horse, we have about 500 books on Crazy Horse. Okay, oh, am I still talking?